New habits are the key to make a change or achieve our goals. Because if we stick to the same behaviors today, it's very unlikely that we will get a completely different outcome tomorrow, right? But even when we subconsciously understand this truth, we more than often than not fail to act accordingly. The science has proven that we humans are creatures of habits and we like to stick to our routines. They make us feel safe, they make us content. So the trouble comes when we need to introduce a new habit, a new behavior. And it doesn't matter if it's in our personal life, career, or at work. We just struggle how to do that. And we fall for the popular belief that new habits are all about willpower, which is not. Because there is one thing that has been proven for sure in change management, that the willpower sucks. The willpower evaporates way too quickly. We cannot rely on willpower as our tool to introduce new habits. Okay, so once you realize that, you may be intrigued to go to the library and get some wisdom and tips from the books. Unfortunately, most of the theories how to introduce new habits are outdated and do not work in today's world. That's because, unlike decades ago, we need to cope with a massive load of distractions. Decades ago, the life was way more straightforward. Just remember, news came in a printed form once a day in the morning, plus one evening's news show on TV. For letters or postcards, it took days to be delivered, so people had more time and mental capacity to work on their self-improvement or building a business. Unfortunately today, a change has more enemies than ever. So we need new weapons to fight them. And one of the less known tricks is the habit stacking. In this episode, we will explore this concept and why it's a game changer. And trust me, it's not just a theory from a book. I have successfully used habit stacking in my own life and I can confirm it really works. Because of course I do struggle with new habits too. So I will share here some of my personal stories too. For example, how I manage to better schedule my work every day or how to get more education time for myself. So stay tuned and let's talk about the change.
Change Talks, your passport to exciting changes in your business, career, and life. Change Talks, your podcast when it's time to do things differently.
Hi and welcome at Change Talks episode about habit stacking, a less known trick to establish new habits and routines. So, what's actually the habit stacking? The definition is quite simple. It's about pairing a new habit with an existing one. So you do not treat the new habits in isolation, but you try to attach them to habits that are already well established. And let's not dive too deep into psychology to find out why it works. Just simply put, it works because you are using the existing wiring of your brain. You are leveraging the power of established routines to bypass your natural resistance. Moreover, you are using the power of cues and triggers. As said, our brain loves the good routines and steers our behavior in their direction whenever it recognizes a familiar pattern. Here are two examples you may recognize. Many people, when arriving to work, start the working day by walking to the kitchenette, making their morning coffee, and having a chat with colleagues. The arrival is the cue that triggers a habit, coffee making, and social interaction. Likewise, in the workspace, when the calendar application pops up a notification that you are due for a meeting in 15 minutes, we typically follow by opening the invitation to review the subject, the attendee list, and gather our notepad and pen. Here, the notification is our clue which triggers the set of habits so we can walk into the meeting room reasonably confident that we are ready to roll, or at least we know what it's about. So, how can we use the habit stacking to our advantage? Quite simply, actually. When you want to introduce a new habit, attach it to an already existing habit or routine. Create a subconscious link between them, so the first one will naturally trigger the new one too. Okay, so here's an example how it worked for me. When working as a corporate executive, my daily agenda was substantially driven by what was going on in the company. There were recurring meetings, team updates, and committees for me to attend. There were strategic or tactical tasks I was both creating and managing, and the inevitable operational agenda that I supervised. Then there were running projects that needed my attention and ad hoc tasks assigned by my superiors. So it was a mixture of self imposed and assigned agenda that I had to deal with. However, as a solo entrepreneur later on, I was the only person in charge of my daily agenda. And here were days when it was, well, confusing. I was kind of spoiled by the freedom of choice what to do, or rather distracted. Suddenly, my daily agenda became chaotic, and even though I was busy all day long, I didn't feel like progressing towards my goals. When I reflected on my days in the evenings, I was more frustrated than satisfied. I realized that the trouble was what activities, what tasks I put on my to-do list for the day and for the week. It was obvious that I need some self-discipline here, but how to do that, right? Because despite the realization, I still followed the same behavioral pattern. In the morning, I jumped on some tasks to tick the done box, only to find out that they were not the best time invested. So clearly, I needed to pause at the morning and do critical assessment of my agenda and to fight the urge to jumpstart with some activity, not to waste time, and when being high on the energy. So I created a new habit for myself. Every morning, I take a paper and notepad, and I write down what's my plan for that very day. And I double check how it fits into my weekly plan and the monthly plan. And to make sure that I will not forget to do this exercise each and every morning, I attach that to my existing routine of having a morning coffee. Because every morning I enjoy the routine of making my own coffee, grinding the coffee beans all by myself, and the magic of pour-over preparation, And then I sit down and enjoy the cup of black coffee. Sometimes it tastes good, actually. So I enrich this existing habit by adding the notepad and writing down the crucial tasks for that very day while sipping on my handmade coffee. That way, I dedicated certain time at the very beginning of my day to make sure that my tasks will be aligned with the bigger picture. And I do not need to book extra time for that because I'm just enriching the already existing habit. And to me, it works like sort of mindfulness moment too. Now, on another occasion, I wanted to spare some time to educate myself. I wanted to read books, interesting articles, so basically having some time to enrich my knowledge. But as you may have guessed, I was really struggling to squeeze an extra time slot for this activity, for this habit, into my daily schedule. And even if I did so, something usually unexpected, if I did so, something unexpected usually happened and pushed this kind of low priority task off the table. So I started to search for another habit that can trigger my desired habit for self-education. And I found it in my commuting. The time spent on the road was hardly productive, but was guaranteed to happen at least twice a day, plus when going for business meetings. Since whenever I got into my car, I learned to switch on an audiobook or a podcast, like pushing the start button in the car and right after that to hit the play button on my phone. Push, push. And voila, it quickly became so natural that I often pushed the play button even when I was driving my son somewhere. So he had to tell me something like, "Dad, can you switch off the talking and play Imagine Dragons instead?" Yeah, he's a big fan. So you can use this trick of habit stacking in your life or business likewise. And I will give you just a couple of examples to demonstrate its practical use. So let's start with something personal like mindfulness and meditation. It is a crazy world, and it's actually a good practice. And I guess I will sidetrack a bit now, because some time ago I completed a course, the Science of Well-being at Yale University. And I'm not a very spiritual person, rather down to earth, but I have to admit that the importance of mindfulness in our lives and the impact it may have on the perceived happiness is one of the big aha moments for me. And I know that many people realize that too, even without the Yale course, and want to incorporate this habit. You might be one of them, right? But here comes the usual trouble. How to find the time and how to stick to meditation each and every day, right? Because we start on the day one eager and full of motivation. But the second day we struggle to find enough time, so we just do it in a rush. On the third day, our motivation is wearing out. On the fourth day, we just forget to meditate at all. On the fifth day, we try to come back, but there's just something more urgent to do. On the sixth day, we give up. You see, willpower just sucks. So try this instead. Find an existing habit, existing routine, and attach the meditation to that. That can be, for example, brushing your teeth, because you do that every morning and every evening, and there's not much else that you can do while moving the toothbrush around. So why not to close your eyes, calm down your mind, just for those 2-3 minutes? Because remember, meditation doesn't have to be long, and neither it requires you to sit in a perfect lotus position with legs crossed and spine straight like you just followed a ruler. Or here's another. Business professionals and entrepreneurs often struggle to draw the line between the working part of the day and the personal, the family part. So if you want to establish a habit of pulling the switch, it's a good idea to attach it to something that you typically do at the end of the day in the late afternoon. That might be clearing your desk, organizing paperwork, closing down open tabs on your computer, or creating a to-do list for the next day. But this sequence of actions can serve as a cue to the brain that the workday is ending. By constantly and consistently following this routine, the brain recognizes these steps as a signal to wind down from work mode and transition into personal time. Okay, so these are just a few examples of how the habit stacking may work. Now, let's take some more systematic look at it and try to define certain rules, or rather tips, how to perform the stacking. First recommendation would be to start small. Do not go for very large-scale habits when you are just learning to master the technique. Time-wise, your new habit should probably not take more than 2 minutes of your time. Otherwise, it may actually overrun the existing habit and jeopardize the new routine. The second and very important step is to identify your anchor habits. These are the existing habits that will serve you as a baseline to attach the new habit. So these habits must be rock solid. It's like a foundation for a house. If the anchor routine is not strong enough, the whole structure will just collapse very quickly. You need to be looking for routines that are very much embedded in your life. Things that you do without too much thinking or mental persuasion. If you struggle to exercise regularly every day, it's definitely not a good idea to attach the post-workout meditation. Because if you won't exercise that day, guess what? You won't meditate either. The third recommendation is to aim for natural sequencing. The new habit should naturally follow or accompany the anchor habit. The order in which you perform habits can significantly influence how well they stick and how smoothly they fit into your routine. Start with an easy or automatic habit that's already well established, which acts as a trigger for the new habits you want to introduce. This initial habit creates a sense of momentum, making it easier to transition into the next habit in the sequence. Then arrange your habits from simple to more complex. By doing the easier tasks first, you build confidence, you build motivation, and that can make tackling more challenging habits less daunting. And sequence your habits in a way that feels natural and logical. So, for example, if you want to build a morning routine, it makes sense to sequence habits in the order you naturally move through your morning, such as drinking water, then exercising, then taking shower, and so on. This flow helps to reduce the friction and makes the routine feel effortless. When habits are sequenced logically, your brain requires less effort to transition from one to the next. And this reduces the decision fatigue and makes it easier to maintain the routine. A well-sequenced habit stack becomes automatic over time, and the completion of one habit naturally triggers the next one. So I guess that by now you get the idea and how the habit stacking can work for you. And I can guess that right now you would like to try this technique and jumpstart with new habits. But better still stay tuned, because there are also some pitfalls to watch for. If you are not aware of these typical traps, that you may fall then into them along the way, and you may find habit stacking equally frustrating. So here's what can go wrong. First trap is overloading your day with new habits. You just learned a new trick, so let's try that in your life, in work, in your relationship, everywhere, right? Now, don't do that. Just be reasonable and rather go step by step. Even learning a new habit is a habit in a sense, right? So you get the point. The second issue could be that you would be stacking habits that are actually not aligned with your values and goals. Now, why would you like to introduce such habits, you may wonder? Funny enough, it's not that uncommon. We often fall for the dreams and wishes that other people impose on us. Dreams that we, down and deep inside, don't want to pursue. More on that topic you may actually find in Change Talks episode number 10. So why does it matter? Because when we do not feel the passion for the new habit, if we do not have a strong personal reason for that, it just won't work. No matter to which anchor habit you try to attach it. We can trick our brain to an extent, but we really cannot trick our subconsciousness. The third pitfall many of us fall into is the belief that we can attach new habits to items, to things, to new gear. Unfortunately, the habit stacking works only with another habits. If you believe that you will stack a habit of running every morning to a new pair of running shoes, you will fail. If you believe that you will stack a habit of evening meditation to that cool Buddha cushion you just purchased on Amazon, you will fail. If you believe you can stack a habit of writing a chapter for your book every day to purchasing a new MacBook Pro, you will fail. No gear can trigger new habits just by itself. You will need new gear only once you establish that habit. And believe me, I've been there too, and I have spent crazy money on different gear. So I know what I'm talking about. But I still occasionally fall for this infamous gear acquisition syndrome because I like gadgets and sometimes I just cannot help myself. For example, camping. I really do like camping outdoors, but I don't do it very often. But whenever I watch some YouTuber camping in the woods and with some cool gear like, I don't know, solar powered heated hammock, I don't know, I have the urge to get that stuff too. Okay, I'm not camping very often, but if I had this hammock, I would, right? Wrong. Because although I have various gimmicks stored in my garage, my camping frequency hasn't changed much. But at least I'm aware now, so I still do occasionally buy cool stuff. Only now I do it in full knowledge about what the gear can do for me and what not. So these were the 3 typical pitfalls to avoid when learning how to stack new habits. Which means that by now you should be ready to deploy this technique and make your desired changes work. Because the habit stacking is a powerful yet quite straightforward life hack. So whenever you will want to introduce a new habit, just attach it to an existing one. This makes new habits bypass the natural brain resistance and sneak into your life without too much trouble. You can use this technique for all sorts of habits. Works for personal life, career, work. I really haven't found an area or habit that cannot be mastered by leveraging the habit stacking. Really, if you find a habit that you believe cannot be stacked, let me know down in the comments. I would be curious to see if we can find a way to make it work. And if you already know what habits you will try to stack and put this method into a test, just leave a comment too. It could be great inspiration and encouragement for the others. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit the follow button and give Change Talks the 5-star rating, because your support helps to bring this content to more people who are just like you. So have a great day, until next time, and make the change work.